welcome. Welcome to Satsang. I know that for me, the presence of God is an overwhelming glow and warmth, an expansiveness in my heart. It's the most divine feeling. How does God's presence manifest itself for you? God is going to manifest in different ways for each of us, based on our own characteristics, our own personalities, our own needs. What matters most to God is simply that we connect. And so, based on how we think, based on our karma, based on our characteristics, we're going to experience God in different ways. Having a warm and fuzzy, expansive feeling in the heart is beautiful. And yeah, I feel that as well. But as many people as there are who connect with God, I think there's that many different experiences of what God is like. It's like if you imagine in your family, say you've got 3 siblings and mother and father and some uncles and some aunts and some grandparents, call it a relatively standard family. And you ask everyone in the family to describe mom. So you ask your dad to describe mom, then you ask your brother or sister to describe mom, then you ask your grandparents to describe mom. Everybody's going to describe her in different ways based on their relationship with her. So to your grandparents, she's their daughter. And they're going to have a completely different perspective on her, and therefore notice and recognize and appreciate different qualities of her than you and your siblings for whom she's your mom. Your father, her husband, is going to have a completely different perspective on her. So if you say, how does thinking about mom make you feel? Well, everybody's going to feel differently. And that's only in one family, 5 or 6 or 8 family members. Now you think God, who's infinite, who could be appearing to you in a temple, in a church, in a gurdwara, in a mosque. God could be appearing to you in the form of Krishna, or Ram, or Shiva, Durga, or Christ, or in the Word, through a Guru Granth Sahib, through all of the different ways that all of the different religions connect with God, some with form, some without form, some with a spoken name, some without a spoken name. And of course, remember all of our indigenous traditions as well, for whom the divine manifests as spirit. a spirit that they feel and experience and worship through the elements. But God is infinite, so God is all of those. And in the same way that your mom isn't going to care or have preference about who connects with her how, think about it in another way. Think about it as a mother, but with 4 or 5 kids, different ages. And one kid, older one, says, "Mom." The one a little bit younger says, "Mommy." The one a little bit younger says, "Ma," or "Mama." And the infant goes, "Ma, ma, ma." Does she care? Does she love one over the other? For the infant, she's a breast, right? If you could somehow get into that infant's head and say, "What's your experience of mother?" It would be a breast. But as we grow, obviously our experience of mother changes. It's no longer just a breast. It becomes a lap. Then it becomes arms. Then it becomes an actual being, the one who cares for us. Then there's all kinds of relationship issues. And that's one human being. Now you think about God, infinite, with infinite number of relationships, with infinite numbers of beings. Because I'm not convinced that humans are the only ones able to connect with God. Couldn't guarantee that other species can, but I also couldn't guarantee that they can't. So we have to assume at least the possibility that there's even more than the however many billions of humans have lived on Earth, ways of connecting with God. But God doesn't seem to have a preference. However we connect with God, Bhagavan Krishna says in the Gita, "However the devotee worships me, I appear to the devotee in that form." So whether we're talking about a form of how we actually experience God, or whether we're talking about how we feel God in our beings. Yeah, I think feeling God in our heart is beautiful. That love of God, that presence of God's love, it's beautiful. As we emphasize bhakti yoga and devotion, it's all about feeling God's love. But are there other ways to experience God? Of course. There's a lot of people for whom God isn't a being who actually loves us and who we love, so it's not such a heart connection. But it's just a presence, an omnipresence, an infinite presence, this idea that there is nothing but God. And so there's an experience of just infinite spaciousness, without even necessarily a quality that one would identify in the heart as love. And God is all of that. God is infinite spaciousness, peace, expansion, love, truth. The mother, the father, the friend, as we chant in our mantras, you are everything. So however you connect to the divine, it's beautiful and it's correct. Ramakrishna Paramahansa, one of the greatest mystics, seers, sages, beings ever, did a personal experiment where he literally wanted to see whether he could, for him, he experienced God as the mother goddess, as Kali. But then he thought, well, she's infinite. Can I experience her through all these other traditions? And so he actually went out and he spent quite a bit of time worshiping God as a Christian, worshiping God as a Muslim, worshiping God, I forget all of the different religions he did, but he chose several different religions and really went into their practices, their name, their language, like how they worship. And at the end of all of them, he was in the same place, one, with his Divine Mother. And it was a beautiful experience for us through him to realize that for one who's so deeply connected to a particular aspect, a particular form, you could say, of the divine, Kalima, that he was equally able to access her through worshiping Jesus Christ. And that it didn't matter which way he went in, but he got to the exact same place every time. So however you experience God, don't worry. It's all exactly right. It's all exactly perfect. The only thing that we always should try is, can I experience God more? More in terms of frequency, because most of us tend to experience God when we're really trying, in our meditation, in our prayers. Maybe if we're very fortunate, it happens spontaneously. There's just moments of our day and suddenly we're overcome with the presence of God. But there tend to be a lot of hours of our day where we are overcome with things other than God. And so I think the only prayer, rather than to experience God in some different way, would be to experience God more frequently. May I experience God through whatever I'm doing. Cooking food, doing the dishes, sweeping the floor, designing a website, driving a car, going grocery shopping, filing papers, singing a song, writing a book, reading a book, balancing accounts. Whatever I'm doing, can I experience God through that? So that as God is infinite, my experience of God may not be infinite, but at least it's something that covers and infuses as many of my daily moments and activities as possible. Questions? Any questions that anyone here might have? Wonderful. So then I'll take another one that's come in advance and give those who are coming in, we started a bit early this evening, give those who are coming in an opportunity to ask theirs. Is there a story that you would share that would provide us with the essence of who you are? Well, remember that the essence of who we all are is the same. The essence of who we all are is divine. And so those aren't so much stories as they are personal experiences. For me, there have been so many stories. I've spent so much time over the last year and a few months sharing and reading stories. Since last summer, my memoir, Hollywood to the Himalayas, came out in the US last summer, and then just in India, published by Jaiko last month, where we've been, every interview, every event is to share different stories. I think it's so hard to think of one, of the essence, because there's so much of the essence. Yes?
You said in your quote today on Facebook, "What I love in the children I found myself."
So today online we had shared a quote of mine that said, "Through serving the children, through working with the children, I found myself." And yeah, for me in Seva, I was raised in a world where my family, friends, everybody was very generous. Everybody gave a lot to charity, gave a lot to the homeless, gave a lot, wherever was needed. But in terms of day-to-day life, it was always really about kind of personally getting ahead. So whether it was me in school, whether it was work, whether it was the way of looking at the world, yes, of course, one did one's charity, one helped others as much as one could, but that was separate. That wasn't really your day-to-day life. That was the extra stuff that you did because it was important and you're a good person. But life itself, in school, in work, was always about what's in it for me. Me as sort of a separate individual. Me as the one who wants to be number one. Me as the one who's in competition with others for this admission, for this ranking, for this place, for this award, for this, that. And when I came here and was given the opportunity to serve, especially to serve children, it was such an extraordinary experience because, yes, I had done a lot of volunteer work before with kids, but it was always done as me over here, me as the fortunate one serving those who were less fortunate, me as the one who was doing good for them. We were separate. The whole idea of seva is it's a spiritual practice. Karma yoga, it's a spiritual practice. It's not about charity. It's not about me over here helping those over there. It's about me being able, through service, to purify my own mind, to purify my own intellect, to purify my way of looking at the world. And so other people agreeing on their soul's level, on their karmic level, to play the role in this life as the children who are needy, as the ones who are hungry, as the ones who are receiving, enables us to have the experience of service. But seva is always about seeing the self in others. Whether someone directly, as in I'm feeding you food, or whether the world in general, if I'm doing something that's not feeding you food, but say I'm, fundraising to earn enough money to make our soup kitchen run, whatever I may be doing, or I'm the one sweeping the floor before anybody arrives at the soup kitchen in the morning, right? No human interaction at all. But nonetheless, very powerfully, that opportunity to see the truth of yourself in all, in the universe. And for me, it happened to come with the kids. It was the first seva I did, was raising money to adopt a bunch of schools. Pujya Swamiji had taken me to see these 10 schools that were, this is going to sound really funny to anybody who's familiar with the area, but in a slum, a horrible slum outside of Delhi called Gurgaon. Now, today, Gurgaon is a bustling metropolis. But 26 years ago, it was a slum outside of Delhi. There was nothing. And he took me to see 10 schools that were being run by a trust who no longer had money. Kids were showing up every day in the school, but they didn't have money to run. So they had approached Pujya Swamiji to see whether he would be prepared through our foundations to adopt them. So he asked me, did I want to go? And I, of course, yes, of course, wherever you go, I want to go. And we spent the day in areas that I had only seen in movies, of what just the most horrible slum areas look like, to the point where when you see them in movies, you think the movie producers or directors must be exaggerating. And then you actually see it in real life. And we ended up adopting the schools, and I had to raise money for it. So it wasn't even so much about actually going and working individually with the kids, but it was in this awareness of them as me. That there wasn't this separateness. And that I was having this experience and this opportunity of serving my capital S self, my higher self, my fuller self, through all of these kids. And it was so extraordinary and so beautiful. So, yeah, thank you for reminding me of that quote. Seva's been a very powerful, perhaps the most powerful, conscious way of experiencing God. I mean, grace is always there. Grace showers upon us, but grace happens by grace. Seva is something we do consciously, something we actually make a decision. I am going to engage in a way of work that from the outside may look very much like work I've always done. Stuffing envelopes, writing letters, designing websites, sweeping floors, whatever it may be, filing things. But suddenly, it's no longer for myself, on the lowercase s self. Suddenly now it's for the expanded self, the self in all of them. And being able to really feel that, whether it's kids, whether it's women, whether it's sick people, whether it's rivers being polluted, whether it's trees being cut down. I mean, that's been one of the most extraordinary things of being at the feet of Pujya Swamiji. Is that's how he lives. As, you know, I've always said he's like a mother to the world, where literally every ache and pain of any human anywhere in the world, or any tree anywhere in the world, or any river anywhere in the world, he hears it and feels it the way that a mother hears and feels her child crying in some other room of the house. But even deeper, he hears and feels it as himself. And that's what he teaches. So yeah, the seva's been just an extraordinary, extraordinary opportunity. Any other questions that anyone may have? Yes. Is there a microphone? Usually have a mic. No problem, just speak loudly.
You have covered a lot of things. My question is that Guru is mandatory for the life? Or without Guru, we can attain moksha with the help of devotion, bhakti, and good deeds, and all of that.
Is a guru necessary? Do we really need a guru? Or can we just attain liberation, awakening, enlightenment through just these paths of devotion, bhakti, and karma, and gyan? Can we just use the paths without a guru? In theory, since enlightenment, moksha, awakening, God realization, self-realization is all here, we don't need anyone or anything else. Self-realization is realizing my own self, realizing God. Well, we are one with God. In theory, we don't need anyone or anything. The problem is that life is not theoretical. And in practice, in actuality, the dilemma is that we've all got this thing called ego. An ego works very well and very hard and very tirelessly to take us off the track. It's not evil, it's not trying to ruin us. It's just got its own attachment to the status quo of how the ego understands myself. So every time that I try to say, for example, to realize, for example, I am not my body. I am not my thoughts. I am not my emotions. Well, the ego is right there saying, yeah, you better be angry. My God, did you hear her? That was so rude. Tomorrow we'll show her. Who does she think she is anyway? Yeah, of course you've got a right to be mad. You better be mad. You're not a doormat. In fact, tonight at dinner, I think I'm going to tell everybody what she did. Nobody should be friends with her anymore. Now, it's very difficult to attain moksha when thoughts like that are flooding your mind. when I tell myself I'm not my body, but I go to parties, to weddings, to events, and as I look around, I see everyone who's so much more beautiful than I am. They're wearing nicer clothes. They dance better. They mingle better. They're much more popular than I am. Look, they crack jokes. And then I go home feeling like I'm kind of a bit less than. Because I'm not so attractive, my clothes aren't so nice, I'm not such a good social butterfly. So it's very, very difficult to experience self-realization when you're feeling awful about the few pounds that you put on over the holidays, or you're feeling awful that you don't have new clothes, or that you didn't have a good joke to tell at the party. And so the problem is that the ego just keeps coming and detracting us, keeps sending us off on different paths. And it keeps telling us that those paths are right. Next time we're going to wear the nice clothes. Next time everybody's going to be looking at us. Yeah, right? So the ego's got a completely different agenda, a completely different goal. A completely different idea of what a successful evening would look like. Right? To the ego, a successful evening is you're the one everyone's jealous of at the party. But that's Maya. That's the opposite of moksha. That's illusion. So spiritually, a successful evening would be that I spent as many moments as possible aware that I am soul, that I am spirit, and that I was able to see soul, spirit in others, that when I met others, I met them on a level of soul, spirit. That every time my mind started to see object, to judge, to grab, to push away, that I was able to free myself from that thought. That, to the spiritual self, would be a successful evening. But you see, they're kind of diametrically opposed. So where the guru comes in is when you are in the throes of, oh my God, how dare she? Or, I'm never going to have any friends, or any of that. The guru's the one who comes in and metaphorically slaps you. You know, like a potter with a big lump of clay on a wheel. Could a lump of clay become a beautiful piece of art on its own? Sure, of course, theoretically. I mean, it's all clay. Could roll the right way, hit up against the right rocks, experience different aspects of erosion over many, many hundreds or thousands of years, and get dried in the sun. Sure, why not? Get a piece of it pulled away by one animal, a piece, molded by another animal. It could happen, in theory. But most of the time when you want to make something out of a lump of clay, you need a potter. You're not going to just leave it there and hope that something beautiful comes out of it. You're going to have a potter put it on a potter's wheel, and the potter is going to spin it around and slap it into shape. And that in many ways is what the guru does. And if you've ever done any kind of ceramics, what you know is as you do it, sometimes the clay gets a little wet and it starts to kind of ooze off this way, and you've got to really hit it to keep it on the wheel, or it's going to end up on the floor. And we're kind of like that in life. The ego takes over. Some past pattern takes over, some desire takes over, grudge or fear takes over, and we literally sort of start oozing over in this direction, and we're just about to actually fall over. And the guru comes in, whack. Not physically for most of us, thankfully. Pujya Swamiji was whacked physically by his guru, but it's not his way of teaching. And so metaphorically, they come in and they whack you. As in, don't go astray. Don't fall off. Stay on track. You're becoming something. Stay on track. There's more to this lump of clay than you realize. So if you didn't have an ego, or if you had great, great, great control over your ego, and you had a lot of clarity, and you never found yourself dragged away or swept up by Maya, or whenever you did, you were able to notice it right away, really quickly, and bring yourself back, then no, in theory, you wouldn't need a guru. But that's not most of our stories. Most of our stories is we get wrapped up in our own stories. We believe our own stories, we believe our own dramas. And our whole lives get absolutely wasted. If you say to most people, and if you go around the room and you say, okay, how are you feeling today? And everybody who says, I'm feeling great and happy, you remove them. You take everybody else. Everybody who gives any answer ranging from frustrated or bored or angry or in despair or sad or whatever it may be. And then you say to them, okay, why? What is the source of your trouble? Almost every single one of them is going to blame someone else or some situation. This person treats me like this, does this, acts like that, belittles me, undermines me, rejects me, insults me, humiliates me, ignores me, or worse, abuses me. This is why. Every one of us that's living in anything other than I am full of joy has got someone else to blame or some story, some circumstance of why we are like that. This is why we need a guru. Because it's the guru who's going to show us, yes, they may be like that. Yes, they absolutely may have spoken to you like that, acted like this, but your choice of how to respond, your choice of your inner response is up to you. How much you want to identify as the one who was ignored, belittled, embarrassed, rejected? Or do you want to identify as consciousness, as divinity, as love? But most of the time it takes a guru to really help us remember that. So, again, yeah, in theory you could do it, but if you're asking my very specific advice, could you be in absolute perfect health without any form of doctor or nutritional consultant or Ayurvedic Vedya or wellness coach or anything? Sure, in theory, you might have just that perfect instinct, knowing exactly what to do, exactly when to do it, exactly how to do it. But for most of us, it really helps to have someone who knows what they're doing. To have someone who can say, it's because when you eat these things together, or when you sleep at that time, or eat at that time, or do this, this is how it impacts your body. This is why you have these symptoms. So in the same way, on a deep spiritual level, it really helps to have someone who can see in the darkness and who can then shine the light for all of us. And why not? Have a beautiful rest of your evening. There will not be satsang for the next, is it 12, 13 days? I leave tomorrow for Morocco and then Spain. It's a beautiful, beautiful honor and privilege. I'll be at a beautiful United Nations event in Morocco. The United Nations Alliance of Civilizations is bringing together leaders from across the world in Fez, Morocco, for peace, for harmony, for sustainability, for oneness. And then from there I go to Manresa, which is a part of Barcelona in Spain, for a beautiful event with Religions for Peace, with the city of Manresa, Barcelona. Another very large event bringing together leaders of different religions, also for peace and sustainability, harmonious societies, upliftment of all. It's what's needed so much today, and it's such a great honor and great privilege to be invited to come and to participate and to speak and to share in these events. So I will be back on the 2nd of December, and we will be planning to shift satsang into our big satsang hall in December, because I think by then it's going to start to get really chilly out here. So either we'll figure out how to get a bunch of heat lamps out here, or we will shift into the satsang hall. But we'll let you know. There will be signs and sevaks and everybody to guide you. So if you will still be here, I will look so forward to seeing you then. And if not, then I look so forward to seeing you whenever your beautiful life's journey and yatra brings you back to Rishikesh.